Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us out here today at within the Nevada Yuba Placer unit and on the side of the North Fork of the American Shaded Fuel Break. My name is Brian Estes. I'm the CAL FIRE Unit Chief for the Nevada Yuba Placer unit and also serve very proudly as the Placer County Fire Department Chief. We just, I just want to thank Governor Newsom and his staff and our county electeds and our partners with both the 3Cs and the National Guard, really for being out here with us today and showcasing what I personally believe is one of the most dynamic efforts in looking at our protection of landscapes and the communities and the infrastructure to go with those landscape protection efforts. And this represents one of the 45-day report 35 priority projects that were prioritized, identified, and funded by the governor's administration. This project, more so than anything, why it's important to me is because it really exemplifies the protection of landscape areas and communities and infrastructure. As many of you know, we have the protection responsibilities for not only the communities that lie within this fuel break, including North Auburn, Meadow Vista, Colfax, Alta, Dutch Flat, et cetera. But we also have important infrastructure, including the Interstate 80 Commerce Way, the UP rail line, and the Kinder Morgan Petroleum Pipeline. So that with these communities really made this a very, very important project. And I think with that, it speaks to the value of local cities like the city of Colfax, the county of Placer, the state of California, and all our allied agencies really dropping barriers, finding solutions to issues and challenges, and getting the work done. And as I was very proud to show the governor down below, we're about 30% complete with our phase one, which is in excess of 850 acres. And that is a direct result and a tangible effect to the protection of these communities. I'm very proud of that, and again, I just want to thank all of our collaborative efforts and our partners that are out there. So with that, I'd like to introduce our chief and our director for our agency, Chief Tom Porter.
I'll fix this for you because you're going to need it a little higher. Thank you, Chief Estes, and thank you, Governor Newsom, for having us here and making this possible. I'm just going to say a couple of things. This is a shining example of what's going on across the state related to the 35 projects that came out of that 45-day report that Governor Newsom charged me with back in January 8th. I remember it well, the day you appointed me your forester and fire chief. So thank you very much for that and the opportunity to bring you back out here today and to really talk about what you're doing for the state in emergency services in general and forest management and forest resilience throughout California. Thank you. And Governor Newsom, the mic is yours.
Thanks, Chief. Thank Chief Estes and everybody for being here in my cheering section. Thank you. We're grateful to all the electeds that are here. And I just want to thank CAL FIRE for organizing this. I want to thank the National Guard for being out here. It's great to see a lot of the National Guard's men and women out there on the line. We are grateful to the California Conservation Corps and to all the state, local agencies that made this possible. Look, as the chief said, we are back. I was here in the first week of the administration. We promoted a commitment to do more and do better as it relates to mitigation efforts, to make sure that we are protecting the most vulnerable communities in this state. And we defined vulnerable more broadly than we have in the past, not just those that are most fire prone, but from a socioeconomic perspective, those that are most vulnerable in the context of ability to get out and be able to get in a car, even own a car. We looked at the issues of demographics in the context of age, a lot of folks that are infirm and capable of even getting out of a high danger situation on their own. All of those things were scored in a different way than we had in the past. We identified 200 vulnerable communities, 35 high profile projects that would protect those communities. We said in a very public way that we would get these projects done by December of this year. Over the course of the last 2 months, we have been making real progress. The challenge with these efforts is self-evident. You need contracts and contractors. You need partnerships. You need commitments. You also need the consent of the private sector. We have one project on Highway 17 where there's 719 permits that we need before we start the project. Projects that you see behind me are on private property. You can imagine, you see all these folks assembled and you knock on the door, said, hey, Joanne, Bob, we're going to start ripping things out, taking over. Don't worry. I know you were looking for a quiet week with your family that just came out from back east, but we're going to come in with chippers and we're going to do these prescribed burns. Obviously, people are like, oh, hold on. We appreciate you, but I'm not sure that much. And so we got to address those issues. And so I think it's actually really remarkable that the kind of progress that we just experienced is actually taking shape just in the last 2 months. And that's a compliment to leadership. At the end of the day, there's no substitute for leadership and no substitute for consent and support from these private individuals and landowners that get it and want to see something big done so that we don't have to experience what folks out here experienced, in 2004 and again in 2009. Yep. And they don't want to be part of the headlines and on the nightly news all across the country and around the world. And I don't want to see that happen either. So we're working hard. I'm very pleased with the progress we're making. I think we're on track to get 33 of those 35 projects completely done. The one I mentioned that has 719 permits on Highway 17 is also a traffic management issue. We got another one nearby that's turned out to be a cannabis issue. That's a whole nother conversation. That's in Grass Valley, not appropriately, but Grass Valley, forgive me, that in Nevada County, that's been a little more stubborn than we expected. I want to also thank some other folks. You know, a lot of concern when you sign a waiver for environmental protections, that creates shivers up people's spines, and I recognize that. We by one estimate, this project would have taken 12 years to get permitted. Someone else told me, no, it's closer to 20. 12 to 20 years. It takes a couple years just to get the permits under traditional rules just for a few acres. You imagine doing 850 acres. So we had to be aggressive, but we also had to build trust. And I want to just thank the environmental community, people that care deeply about endangered species, people care deeply about native plants, people care deeply about Native American heritage. All those things also had to be considered. And I just want to congratulate all of you for being part of that trust building that allow us to move forward. And I think that's going remarkably well in all of these projects, Tom, all up and down this state. Absolutely. It's not perfect. There are issues, but we are making progress. And the reason that matters in closing is that this is the beginning. 35 high-profile projects, I mean, multiply that by 100, and we're doing justice to what we need to be doing in this state. And the only way we can do that is the foundation of trust we're building all these projects. So again, compliments to everybody that is part of this. Final 2 points. We're also announcing today we're adding 393 new individuals on 1/3 of all CAL FIRE engines. We're going to get a 4th member on these CAL FIRE crews. I think that's going to help morale. It's going to help with rotation. It's certainly going to help with women and manpower as it relates to suppression efforts and mitigation efforts. So we're blessed to be able to do that. That's not an insignificant thing to do at this moment. It's a $26.5 million commitment, but it's necessary as we're getting closer to peak fire season. We're walking right into the peak part of our fire season. We're not getting the benefits of these snow melts anymore that have helped slow the fire season. For people that think, boy, things are going well, don't hold your breath. This thing's just delayed. It's not denied. And the new realities of the hot's getting hotter, the dry's getting drier, the wet's getting wetter. That's what happened last year. That's the world we're living in. You may call it global weirding. You may call it global warming. You may call it climate change. Or you may say what the guy that I was playing liar's dice at the Monte Vista Inn said something ain't right. You can call it whatever, all of the above. One of those four you choose, but we know we have a lot of responsibility to meet this moment, and we are. Final, I said 2 points. This is the final of those two. We need support from the federal government. You know, it's just interesting. You walk out in this line, one's right up to federal property, and there's nothing happening on the federal side of that property. I want to remind everyone, close to 60% of all the land we need to manage vegetation and fuel management is federal property, 57+%. And so we need a more robust commitment. I've written some public letters, private letters, to get support. Other governors have as well. They've actually been cutting the budget. I don't know, it seems like we're running these massive deficits. They seem to be spending more money on everything except on this, which is remarkable. Though the new budget we're taking a look at, but the last 2 years, certainly that's been the case. We need more support. And I got to tell you, folks that work for the federal government are extraordinary, and we're blessed, but they just need a little bit more so they can do more. And I just want folks to know we're pursuing that, and that is a big part of this larger equation. So 393 new personnel in these CAL FIRE engines, 119 of them are out there. We got 13 new engines in this budget. That's a third of all these engines are going to have more personnel. We're moving as we should on these projects. A couple projects are a little more stubborn of the 35, but all the rest, Tom, you're going to get done by December, as you suggested. And I'm confident of that, confident in the progress we've made, and again, grateful to all the local leaders that have been so helpful in this process and engaged. So that's why we're out here. Good to see the progress. I hope all you do as well. And thank you to all the men and women that are, avoiding rattlesnakes and trying not to get poison oak and sunburns, that are doing an incredible job behind me. With that, we might as well, the pageantry of the office. It's not that interesting, but I'll sign an executive order. This one, number 1619, that actually gets these 393 men and women out there to prepare for peak fire season. So, Tom, that is now new directive, and we appreciate all your work and getting these folks out there to work. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Governor, so at the CAL FIRE board meeting 2 weeks ago, Helga Eng said that 27 of the 35 projects were less than a quarter complete, and that 6 hadn't even broken ground yet.
Yeah.
So, with the worsening time of fire season coming up,
Yeah.
will there be enough progress made?
Oh, yeah. No, you couldn't promise, we announced this 2 months ago, that they magically can complete every project in 60 days. So that's absolutely true. What's interesting, and I think this is important, and Tom, you're the one who should be answering this question. I don't want to overstate it, but I would argue the majority of the work is done before you even break ground. I'll just give you the Nevada County project that I was talking about that's stubborn. We think it will take us 100 days once we start. It may take 200 days to get approvals. I'll mention again the Highway 17 project. I know a little bit about Highway 17. Anyone drives up there, that is a deeply challenging traffic mitigation issue, and Caltrans not too pleased with us. But there's 719, am I being literal, permits that need to be granted before that project starts. Once that starts, we're moving quickly. So that's absolutely true when you look at the progress to date, but you have to look at all the progress that is getting done on the permitting side of it, and then you're going to see just quick progress once the projects get underway. I don't know, Dan, you want to fill in that?
Governor Newsom said exactly what the issue is. A lot of the slow part of getting these projects going on the ground is what we've been working on. Kind of that last planning. CEQA relief gives you one piece of that. You still have to plan, get the contracts in place, get the ground has to dry out enough so you can actually work on some of the ground. We still have projects that are waiting for some snow to come off of them. All of these things are still kind of in the mix. As fall comes along, we'll start to see a massive increase in acreage treated. These are an absolute priority. We do fuel work every year, all year long. But these 35 projects are the priority statewide.
So we'll, and trust me, we're monitoring this very closely. This, again, is a top priority.
Question as well. just
Yeah.
quick. So the report that was sent back to you, of course, by CAL FIRE said that CAL FIRE wants to do more private fuel reductions, prescribe burns, like those sometimes encounter, flood resistance from various fronts, obviously. So how is CAL FIRE working to overcome those?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, and that is a great question. Most of these projects are ones that we've been working through those issues along the way, and that's part of what's been happening this spring. As we move into more of the burning cycle, we're going to be working with our air pollution control districts and making sure that we have all of the emissions kind of permitting and reporting requirements that we have. We also, through the governor's budget, have monitoring that we're going to add into that is in conjunction with ARB. So a lot of this has been worked out. We just need to get to the right weather windows that allow us to do those kind of burning projects, and then make sure we aren't having fires at the same time. So everything is going to kind of come together as we get toward the fall on these projects.
And remember, this is just one small piece of the larger efforts this year to deal with mitigation, suppression, and prepare more robustly for recovery. Close to $1 billion was put in the budget this year for those efforts. We usually spend $1 billion when we go over budget just on response. We're trying to invest $1 billion proactively so we can reduce those costs on the back end and save lives on the front end. I mean, as appropriate. We put $75 million, as you know, in the budget for a reason. We want to make sure that those are done appropriately and done in consultation with local officials, and to make sure that if the utilities are not meeting their responsibilities at a local level, that we're not just complaining about it, but that we're doing something about it, and we have flexible funding for the cities and counties to address the immediacy of concern related to vulnerable communities that may be impacted or businesses may be impacted. Without getting into details, I'll give you a broad strokes example that would answer the question better than me just saying yes or no. There was an incident with PG&E on some shutoffs a few months ago where there was no coordination and collaboration with the state. They were in the office quite literally the next day, and we had a very honest conversation about expectations. So we are working to make sure this is done appropriately, but I do think there are circumstances, and there always have been in the past, and looking at best practices in San Diego for years, where it is appropriate in those extreme events to do what we call this PSPS. That's the new language of de-energization.
How concerned are you about the public safety risks that these PSPS?
I wouldn't have put $75 million in the budget if I wasn't concerned.
Governor, you're asking for a more robust commitment from the federal government a day after signing a bill that hopes yet again at the president. Do you think that the swipes that you've been taking at him is backfiring at all?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. Well, I'm not doing that the day after, so just clarify the facts. We've been at this, the request, for many, many months, as you know. Many of those have been made public, so that's just one important clarification. I don't know that it's a swipe. That legislature unanimously, at least Democrats, supported a transparency requirement to do what the president said he was going to do during the campaign. And it's pretty easy to resolve this. As you know, I'm included in that. It's not a swipe. I didn't take it personally that the governor is included. I'm more than happy to provide you that information. I think you need it. I've got a lot of business interests. I've got a property up here. You should know that. Hard for folks to know all those interests if I don't release my tax returns. You have a right to know that. I know you want to know that, but I think the public should know that. And if it's good enough for a governor, I think it's certainly something we should expect, as we have since 1973 from the president. and presidential candidates. And as you know, every presidential candidate is required to advance these same transparency protections.
You're asking for this additional help. Is it hurting your cause to
I talked to the president yesterday. We're continuing to try to work collaboratively together. I'll leave that to you. You could tell me, I imagine the same question you may ask on all the lawsuits. Every lawsuit this state has filed, I imagine, isn't taken very enthusiastically. And I think I got here and there were 43 lawsuits filed before I took the oath of office. So let's be a little bit more, let's have a broader perspective on this relationship and look at some of the facts as to why we filed those lawsuits, why we've subsequently filed a number of lawsuits, and why we're in this position in the first place. It predates me, and I'm trying to do my best to engage and continue to, including two conversations with the president in the last 10 days.
Can you expand on that conversation?
No, I can't, but I'm happy to ask another question, answer another question.
I'd like to know as well what you.
Well, you're going to maybe ask the White House for a recording. I don't know. I can't and won't do that. But Rita, no, I was talking about. Look, I can't tell you. I mean, I don't know how many times you've written it, so I don't want to bore you because I don't know how many times I've said it. When it comes to the issue of emergency preparedness and planning and finding ways to work together and collaborative on multiple issues, be it shootings, and Ridgecrest, and earthquakes, and wildfires, on anything, infrastructure. I want to work with the president. I can't. Again, I don't know how many times I say that, but when you change the rules at FEMA to big states like California, when you try to roll back our clean water and clean air standards and our fuel efficiency standards on vehicle emissions, we're going to push back. And I would hope you wouldn't be surprised by that. I was very proud last week. I mean, I'd be less worried about this bill than what we did last week on CAFE standards. I mean, that was a very significant rebuke of the administration, but it's interesting no one asked me about being sensitive, how they would respond to that, when that substantively is a deep rebuke on a major issue that has consequences not just across this state, but across the rest of the world, not just the United States.
I do wonder, back to wildfires, we've been seeing more urban areas affected these, like Santa Rosa. How worried should people be about that this year? And do any of these projects that you've been talking about
Substantively.
talk about dealing with urban areas?
Those 200 communities really connect to that question, yeah.
Yeah. So related to urban areas, of course, we've seen fires impacting urban areas in ways that doesn't happen very often. Thank you, sir. And but it does happen, and it has happened in the past. I mean, we go through these kind of events every decade or so. What we are coming out of, I hope we're coming out of, is one of those. But every place where we have vegetation and fuels that are in a dry and decadent, thick state, you have the chance of fires going from that brush and that vegetation into the community. That could be within a mile of the coastline. It could be out here in Colfax. It's all the same physics that are going on. And so all of these projects that we're doing, the 35, actually have 200 plus communities that they're going to help reduce that risk for. And we need to continue to do this and maintain these projects, but we need to increase from where we are currently at about 250,000 acres a year of forest health and fuels type of treatments to double that in the next decade to around 500,000, and that's just on the state and private lands. The federal government also needs to do that, and it's all part of the California carbon plan that we do that in conjunction. So we're looking to do 1 million acres of treatment every year, which would be some maintenance, some new projects across the landscape of California, in order to kind of turn that tide. Some of those projects will be in and around the more urbanized areas. And what you have currently are fires that have been burning out of more rural and forested areas into the intermix and then into the urban areas. And we need to do work everywhere, from the woods to the intermix where you have several houses per acre to where you have hundreds of houses per 5 acres.
I wonder if, we've heard a lot of California about making their lawn and stuff drought resistant. Do we have to think about making them fire resistant?
We do. And fire resistant is both reducing the fuels around the home, the defensible space. It's also hardening the structure. And all of that information can be gathered from the CAL FIRE app that's available. It's ready for, you can look it up for Ready for Wildfire. Look it up on any app store. And then also go to readyforwildfire.org and you can get the same information.
Even people who live in like suburbs.
Even people that live in suburbs. If you live in a city, in LA, let's say, in San Diego, in San Francisco, Oakland, and you have a canyon land next to you, you need to be worried and you need to prepare. The question again, please?
New firefighters.
Yes.
How many are seasonal? How many are permanent?
So-
Breakdown where they're going.
Thank you. 393 new firefighters. Thank you, Governor Newsom. They are all new. They are all what you termed seasonal firefighters. We call them firefighter ones. They are professional firefighters that ride on the engine, and they will significantly increase the amount of work each engine can do and reduce the work pressure on those that are on those engines.
And how does that help? What makes that difference? You already
So-
got an engine out there. Why do you need much more?
Do you want so
Those guys will answer right over
yeah,
there.
yeah. So you can gather that information from after this, but I'm going to give you the standard answer statewide. One additional body gives you an additional body to carry hose, swing a tool, reduce the workload stress on all of the other 3 that are typically on that engine. So it gives you a much stronger team to be able to do the work of a fire engine. You can actually push more fire hose and water up a fire line with 4 than you can with 3 in the same amount of time and have less stress on the people doing it. Likewise, if we get into a place where we're not pushing water but we're throwing tools, you have an extra body to be swinging a tool and cutting fire line. This is very, very effective and something we've been doing for several years. And in this case, we're actually expanding that number beyond where we were last year.
Last question.
And I just, and forgive me, I'm happy to answer if there's a couple more. One of the things that you may recall we did early on is we requested that our National Guard be pulled off the border for things that I felt were not as essential as addressing the real emergency, and that is the prospects of another wildfire season like we experienced last year. What's wonderful to see, we have now 111 National Guards men and women that are deployed in 8 different projects. But what was wonderful to hear is how enthusiastic everybody is being out here, doing something real and tangible, seeing the results every single day of that labor. I just think that's just a wonderful thing to see, and it's wonderful to see that enthusiasm after that executive order redeploying our National Guard went into effect.
Has this surge been prompted by any kind of forecast or data that CAL FIRE is seeing? Is there anything that particularly different about the upcoming time that is accomplished?
Yes, and you actually you can go on our predictive services site for either north or south part of the state and see that we're at a turning point right now. The expectation of this summer has been that it will be a potential large and damaging kind of season. There's a lot of fine fuels, the grasses out there that are completely cured. We're right now seeing the chaparral starting to turn. And so fires are going to start to get bigger and less controllable from here on out until we get to winter rains.
Yeah, I wish he didn't answer that question, except it's an honest one. I mean, it's the reality we're in. Again, there's a false sense of confidence that things have gone as well as they have, and we've gone through most of, or at least a good portion of July. Anybody else on topic? You can track me down on other issues.
I just want to comment, more personnel on a fire truck. One of the most important parts is safety for the firefighters, because they risk their lives every day out there, and if they get hurt, they need someone to be there to help them.
And by the way, you have just prompted, and thank you for this. I should have began with this. There's a reason you'll see every CAL FIRE personnel, and there is a black ribbon across the badge. I neglected to mention that. There was a tragic incident that occurred on Sunday where we lost one of our CAL FIRE members. And Chief, why don't we talk a little bit more about that? It's an appropriate way to end this press conference. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for the acknowledgement of firefighter Katkoff. He was actually training for what we do every day, and very arduous training, but within the normal pattern of what we do on a daily basis, just to be ready for wildfires. And unfortunately, succumbed to illness that occurred during that work. So kind of coming back to what we have, this was a firefighter 1, just as I mentioned before. Same classification as the 393 that we're adding. This is a dangerous business. It's a dangerous business every single day, fires or no fires. And having more and being able to share the workload and reduce the stress on the bodies and minds of the people that are doing the work is critical. And this investment is going to be helpful. My heart and soul is with the Katkoff family, and I am so sad for their loss and sad for the loss of a strong CAL FIRE firefighter who had a long life to give to this noble undertaking. And so with that, I think the rest is kind of clear that we need to protect our firefighters, and thank you very much for the question, because that is really what we need to do, and the way to do that is to give them more support.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, sir.